Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chuck Furuya Uncorked. Keli'i, our son, and our special guest this week, Keli'i Heen. Welcome, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for giving
Thanks,
us your time. So Keli'i has his hand in a lot of different projects. He's a local producer with Pal Vodka. I've known him since I was, a pretty little kid. He was working with my mom and my grandma when they had fine wine imports. I box with him like 4 or 5 times a week now. So when we're filming this, Bubba and Uncle Kimo's episode dropped today.
Yeah.
So it's all the same crew, and we go to lunch every Thursday. We all talk story. We all hang out. So it's part of our little gang, and we thought that it was important to represent that on the podcast, as well as he has a ton of insights about his favorite restaurants he likes to eat at. I mean, he made us these delicious cocktails. This is I'm not a big tequila drinker, but I am really into this Paloma. He has a couple different other brands as well, so we just wanted to invite you on, talk story with you.
Well, let's just say this too. One of our favorite Kaneohe eateries is Zia's, so he created the menu there, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the first kitchen that I ever managed. The first kitchen I ran was Zia's in Kailua.
Yeah.
With Don Diamond
Yeah.
and Tressa Owens and Robin.
Yeah.
They were the three,
So
the
your
managers.
your background is culinary.
Yeah,
first.
actually, I went to school with Culinary School with your uncle Christian. So we went there, and I want to say that was 92 after I got done working on the Marine base. And then we came out, and he was deciding to go, and I wanted to go at the same time. So we drove to school together every single day. And about halfway through, I ended up getting jobs doing private work. So I dropped out, and Christian saw it all the way through. I ended up going into private chef work, which took me on a whole nother tangent right after Zia's.
So let's just clarify for the viewers. So Christian is Keli'i's uncle, and he's part of the Schneider family that owns and runs Buzz's.
Yeah.
And so he went to school with Keli'i, and
Yeah.
Keli'i opened Zia's restaurant in Kaneohe, which is a really cute little family-owned neighborhood kind of Italian food that was owned by Don Diamond of Kalapawai Market.
Yeah.
And now owned by Micah Suderman and run by Micah Suderman.
It's amazing that Micah did that because, with the history with what Zia's was and my connection to it. And for me, it's like my first restaurant that I ran. So I have this nostalgic view of like what the food is. And like, I know it's not like the greatest Italian food. When I was running it, definitely wasn't. But it's gotten a lot better now that they have, new people in. But it was like these wholesome, hearty Italian dishes, like just good, wholesome lasagna, good chicken parm.
Well, and like you said, it's a lot of people's, whether it's their first industry, it's a lot of people's first industry job. It's a lot of people's like first date night spots when you're like growing up and you're like 16, 17,
yeah.
I mean,
that place is packed, right now.
yeah.
I mean, it's doing well. So it's kind of like one of the restaurants for me anyway in Kaneohe. Not that I know a lot, but I'm just saying they do a really good job. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that he definitely has culinary background.
I didn't know that.
And then in addition to that, working on the distribution side for so long, and understanding brands, he's very well versed and exposed and well versed, therefore, in spirits, champagne, wines, the whole gamut. So this guy, that's why the mixology of these drinks.
Yeah.
That's him. I mean, so now next stage would be you're involved with the tequila, which is named?
Three Trace Tequila, and then we also do Devant Champagne, which my partner Mark Becker and I own together. It's actually produced by Charles Elner, who you're probably familiar with.
Sure.
So Elner Brands, he wasn't around. He kind of fell out of the market a bit in most markets that I know.
Yeah.
And so we just partnered with
it's
him.
really interesting. When I worked when I managed La Mer restaurant at Halikmani, everybody gets a complimentary glass of champagne to start off with. And we used to do Elner.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to use that now on my sales page.
So that would have been like 85, 86, 84, somewhere around there, mid-80s.
Yeah. We know when Mark came across them, my business partner Mark Becker, who Kali knows, and he used to run Armand de Brignac, or Ace of Spades, right? He ran the West Coast for Ace of Spades, and he built that brand from when it was zero to when it was sold to Jay-Z's company. And through his connections in Champagne, he saw like a gap in the market, and he's like, well, what should we do is make something that's a little more approachable in price point, but still something that's marketed and packaged for a different consumer than the classic Champagne consumer, because that consumer is obviously looking for an old school, the classic houses. But what Ace of Spades proved, I think, was that the model is that it's not necessarily the classic or the brick and mortar champagne house that can only be successful in champagne. It can also be successful from a brand that's marketed correctly, that uses quality champagne. It doesn't try and cheap out just because of a pretty bottle. Right. So you can combine the two things together with making relatively good champagne, quality champagne, right, but also using a package that's innovative and new that a new consumer is going to gravitate towards and be like, oh, that's cool. I want to grab that off the shelf. So combine those two things together is kind of what we've built our company around up to this date, is really packaging innovation and finding a way to take what is older
categories. Curbside appeal, just so people catch their eye. So when they go into a store, absolutely, it catches their eye immediately.
The packaging you're talking about is the glow in the dark.
There's two. There's a funny story about that. So the first public tasting that I did in Hawaii was at Fujioka's, and so we're on there with Jason, and we're next door at Formaggio. And so we're doing the first tasting there, and I was working with Kevin Toyama, had the caviar that he was doing. Yeah. So Kevin was doing the caviar, I was doing the champagne. So we do this whole tasting. He does the caviar. I come in, I taste champagne. I talk about Elner, blah, 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 Epernay, champagne, all the stuff. And at the end of the presentation, I go, just so you guys know, we also make a glow label. Because for me, like, being a wine person by trade, like, it's the worst. It pains me to go, like, just to buy the blinky label thing, right? And so they dim the lights and they blink, the blinking bottles going off in the back of the room. And everybody's like, oh my God, it's so cool. And not even kidding you, only bottles that we sold, all the bottles we sold, and we sold out of everything, was all the glow label, the blink label. And it wasn't like young people. It was people that would go to a wine tasting like that, right? Older Asian couples, 7-year-old ladies, whatever. They were all into it, and that's all they bought. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes, like, it blew up in my face, because I'm like, there's no way this is going to sell. This is ridiculous that I have to sell a blinking label of champagne. And at the end of the day, what did people want to drink? They tasted the champagne. They wanted that, but they wanted also the blinky label.
Well, I mean, it goes back to you're trying to take champagne and the concept of champagne to a new market. Yeah. And so it's how you, the curbside appeal, just the eye appeal of the thing. If blinking lights work, then you've succeeded. Yeah, and and you got to make sure that the quality of the juice is good and it doesn't fall flat just based on marketing, right? You can't just have a pretty package. Yeah. You can't just be out there and be like, oh, look at my cool label, or look at this thing I did, or look at these cool bottles that stack up together. That doesn't work at the end of the day, because that consumer is not going to come back and buy again and again and again, right? You have to have quality product that's also appealing on the curb. Right. So in addition to that, you're involved with Paul Vodka? I am. So I used to be a distributor when I was with. So I used to be with RNDC, what's now RNDC, but Young's Market. Yeah. So most recently, about 2 years ago, I left them, but I was their vice president and general sales manager. So I ran the sales for Hawaii. Before that, I was on Maui. I was the branch manager for Maui. Paul Vodka was right next to my house. It was literally 2 minutes from my house. I drove past it every single day, back and forth. And I just became friends with the master distiller, Mark Nigber, and he's such a cool guy. I came from Colorado. The story's really cool. And I just really liked the brand. We got them and convinced them to come over. We worked it out. So they came over to Young's Market when I was there. And then we just took the brand and just got, it used to be in a relatively silly bottle. I don't know if you remember that bottle it was in. It was like an old champagne bottle. It was like 2 feet tall. It was crystal. And the base was, it was like 3 square inches. So anytime you just look at it, it would fall over and break. So it's like the worst idea ever. And it was like $60 a bottle or whatever. So it's this crazy marketing plan. But what they did is they, realigned, and the Levesque family, realized that we need to be in a certain place, not that, and make it just more utility and represent Hawaii better than being some cool brand. Mm-hmm. And so I was their distributor, and then when I left Young's, I started talking with the Levesque family, and they said, hey, why don't you come on and just be our brand ambassador? That's what I was talking to them about, was being the brand ambassador for Power for the U.S. And
what does that mean?
It means I open up new markets when a market opens or a distributor opens. If they open in New York or some new market in Arizona, I'll fly out, take people to dinner, talk about the brand, but mostly talk about Hawaii. Honestly, it's about spreading, like, understanding what we do and why we do what we do it, because there's a million of every spirit, but vodka specifically, there's so many out there, and they're so relatively nondescript. By nature, vodka is not like it doesn't have a lot of character, right? It has character in between different vodkas. Like, I'm not discounting that. But what I'm saying is,
but as it's a brand, intentionally like that, though.
Yeah, that's how it's made, right? Yeah. But you need to, if you're gonna sell vodka, you need to have a reason why you're doing it. And like every brand, winery, distillery, whatever,
the story behind it.
You have to have something, a purpose and a cause, right? When I go to wineries now, I don't go there. I don't want to see, for me anyway, I don't want to see the barrel room or the gravity fed, this and that. I want to talk to the people, taste the wine, look at the place, really get a feel for the culture. Because that tells you a lot about what they're doing as a winemaker, right?
Right.
You get to know the person, you get to know the wine a lot better. You get to know the place, you get to know the distillery better, right? You get to know the products better. So I came on with them, and I just go and I tell the story of Maui and why we're doing the project and what it is, and using, Maui Gold pineapples.
That's what you make the vodka out of.
It is. So about, I think this was 2019, Maui Gold Pineapple was going to go out of business. So not long before I left Maui. And the Levesque family decided to purchase them before they went into bankruptcy and get in the pineapple business, growing business, agriculture. So I asked them, I was like, do any of you know how to grow anything or about pineapples in any way? They're like, we don't know anything about this. So they go into this business only, number one is because it's a supply chain issue, right? You have to be able to control your product. And if Maui Gold Pineapple goes out of business, where are we going to get our pineapples from? Then it doesn't become a Maui product anymore. It becomes some other place product, right? That we're distilling only on Maui. So that was an issue. And on top of that, the jobs and being part of the fabric of the community. And when I got in with them, that was really something that we wanted to impress, was being part of the fabric of Hawaii and part of Maui and Makau and, Halimaili. And if you're up there, you got to be good stewards of the community as well, not just your business, but everybody around you. So when they did that, they saved all those jobs. Rudy, who's the farm manager up at Maui Gold, and now it's just part of our culture of the business. So we own Maui Gold pineapples all the way from.
But do they own the land?
Yeah. Oh no, Maui Land and Pine owns the land.
Still,
so we have a
owns the
long-term
land.
lease on the land. So we have the distillery. The distillery is literally, I don't know, 200 yards away from the processing area for Maui Gold. So it's right across the street.
And what a value-added product to make it into alcohol, which is
Yeah.
the greatest profit margin.
And you don't have to do all pineapple juice, other things, right? Yeah. So you have all this value-add product that you could do, but at the end of the day, for the seconds and, unusable ones that you're not going to take to Costco or whatever store,
Vodka.
then you can use that. We actually send it up to Tedeschi, to the winery up in Upcountry. They press it for us and send the juice back down. And then the distillery, what really impressed me about them was everything is under one roof. It's like soup to nuts. I've been, how many distilleries over the course of time.
Well, you don't have to go through converting starch to sugar anymore. You
Yeah.
got sugar already, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
skip the whole step.
We're there. We're there.
I mean, a couple steps because you have to, malt it, etc.
You worked on pineapple farms for a long time, too.
But Kapalua side, Honolulu, he's talking about Hali'imaili more up there.
But there is less conversion, right? So it was
Yeah,
easier. And that's
it's
why
easier.
Yeah, and that's why the name is actually Pau. The reason for the name Pau is because they didn't only start with pineapple. They didn't come there and be like, oh, we're going to make a pineapple vodka. And the Levesque family's been around for 75 years, right? They're one of the largest rectifiers in the entire country. They've made everything from Hanabe and Whaler's rum, and they make all the Costco vodka. I probably shouldn't say that online, but whatever. We do a lot of different products. Screwball whiskey is produced at our distillery in Miraloma. So a lot of things are made there. So when they did this project, they were like, it's time for us to have a brick and mortar. And we feel no place that's more important to us as a family and as a business than we do it on Maui. And Maui makes sense to us. So we got a little shack, hired Mark, and started doing this stuff. But they started messing around with different products. They tried taro, they tried sweet potato, they tried ulu. And finally, when they came across the Maui Gold pineapple, because of the low acidity, they were able to ferment that easier than they were classic pineapple.
Yeah.
And the low acidity, once they tried that and they started to ferment that, then distill it, that was the finished product. And they decided that was Pau. Everything was Pau. That was it. That's the reason for the name Pau vodka.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
you just think about it. You don't have to,
It's a one-step process.
yeah, it's like
Streamlined. Yeah.
But at the same time, you're preserving Maui Gold pineapples.
Mhm.
That's a very different concept than when I was doing pineapples. You didn't have selected pineapples, genetically selected pineapples like you do now.
like
you
low
know?
acidity pineapples, you mean?
Yeah, low acid. And the other thing that became happening was I think it's called ethanol or something like that. Ether. It's considered a false ripening hormone. So when they spray the field, all the pineapples would ripen around the same time. That kind of stuff changes the pineapple. So, what made the Maui pineapple so special is because they're high elevation, and so therefore they have to hang on the plant longer than down below. Like in Honolulu, the difference between down below and up on top was like 6, maybe sometimes 8 weeks. So the pineapples up on top had longer hang time, just like grapes,
Physiological maturity.
more physiological maturity, and so. That's the whole secret to the pineapples where he's talking about.
Everything
it's high
gets
elevation
gas now.
Yeah, I heard you talking about an earlier podcast about about kula onions, right, and the terroir involved in that, and I think it's the same thing is applicable to the pineapple, right?
I
Where
think
you grow
so.
it makes a big difference.
Well, I think it's not so much the soil; it's more about the altitude. You know,
Or the
it's
weather pattern at night, cooler
just
evenings.
so cooler,
Yeah.
so much cooler.
Higher altitude better.
Well, not all the time, but in this case, for the pineapple, you get more physiological development.
Yeah, it'll ripen slightly slower, right? As you're at lower elevation and higher heat, you're
So
going to
you
have a
guys'
different
next
process.
project that's a higher end vodka is to use Uncle Frankie's
What is it?
$20 pineapple. So your vodka bottle.
Yeah, so we need $100 vodka in the market. That's exactly
You
what we
ever
need.
seen Frankie's Nursery?
No.
They have this.
Oh, the one in Waimanalo?
Yeah, but they started like doing a bigger production of this pineapple somewhere in Cunha area.
Oh, okay.
But it's like a pina colada. He like bred this pineapple himself. It's smaller, lower acid as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's white too.
Oh, I've heard about this. I haven't
They're
tried
small
one yet.
though. That's the
They're
only
tiny,
thing.
right?
They're
They're
tiny.
But it
But
tastes,
Frankie and I grew up together. So,
really?
Yeah. So he, hung out with Frankie on the farm all the time. He'd go there and run around and
when I had my juice company, we would try to buy pineapples from him just because it was cool. And he was in Waimanalo, we were Nalo Juice, but our cost would go like astronomically through the roof.
That's
So
not going to
very
work long term. It's not a good business plan.
No, definitely not.
That's not going to pan out at all.
Okay, so you did. You had. You see how much experience this guy has, and so we segue now. So let's talk about the drinks that's in front of us now.
Well, I made two drinks. One only because I'm not a bartender. Just to be very clear, I've seen Newman. I listened to Newman this morning on your podcast, and those guys are professionals, and what they do is extraordinary. I'm a chef by trade. That's what I do, and I made two drinks only because I like to drink them a lot. And then I made a Paloma because my absolute favorite drink to drink is a Paloma. I love tequila, number one. Number two, I like the simplicity of having a drink that has like three components in it, like a Jack and Coke or vodka soda. Like it's not much more difficult than that, right? Yeah. And if you're making it at your house and you're having people over, and tequila, I mean, some people think it's a spirit that makes people like kind of a little more edgy and angry. For me, it's more of a celebratory spirit. I find like I'm in a better mood. I'm a little bit more upbeat. It's a little more like amphetamine based as opposed to a depressant.
Well, it's the only spirit that is a stimulant.
Yeah, it's stimulant. Yeah. So when you drink it, I just like that. And for when I'm having people over, I just really like drinking Palomas. That's what I've done for over 10 years in my house. And I just keep it as simple as you possibly can. Tequila, lime juice.
When you go there, that's it's simple like that.
Yeah, they don't mess around. They're not trying to do a bunch of stuff down there. And
so let me ask you a question. So you mentioned that you went down there to visit.
Yeah.
What other spirit areas have you visited?
I've been to the South a lot because we just did a lot of whiskey, whiskey and bourbon distribution. So we've I've distributed over Heaven Hill and Sazerac and Brown Forman and all of those things. Spirit, and then the West Coast, but distilleries they're not like wine, right? They don't have to be in a place.
Yeah. Right.
They can be anywhere. They're like a brewery. You can put it in Milwaukee, right? Great. There's none of the ingredients are from anywhere near remotely close to wherever that is. It's not an agricultural product, right?
Right.
And distilleries are somewhat similar, right? There's a lot of stuff that's done in the Midwest and not everything's necessarily from around there.
Right.
So when it comes to that, there's only one thing. And the first time I did go to Jack Daniel's, though, I was like giddy like a little kid, right? That's the mecca of American whiskey. Right? That's it.
I cannot drink that stuff.
Oh,
Sorry.
I mean, this is how much we drank Jack Daniel's. At my wedding, that's what we gave. You know how people have cookies and favors and stuff they put on the table? We gave away 50 mLs of Jack Daniel's. It said Keli'i Heen on the 50s, a little like tag on that. Like that's how bad it was. So when I first met my wife, the first drink when we sat at a bar together was she ordered Jack Daniel's, and the bartender goes, "Do you want that on the rocks or like with soda?" And she's like, "No,
straight up
in a glass." I'm like, "This girl's fucking awesome."
You're like, she's awesome, but she's borderline
Straight up.
alcoholic.
And she's nuts. I'm into it, super into it. But those are those are some of the things. But going there to answer your question, that was to me is the most probably influential thing as far as American distilleries. But going to Guadalajara and being in Jalisco at the tequila distilleries really like was impressive on me because you're so close to all of the product that's there. You're in the agave fields, right? You're in the town of Tequila, which is so historic. And you're drinking products made by these people with all of this heritage and history for generations
and the
and
stone
generations
ovens.
and generations.
Just the stone ovens, to see them work that stuff.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
those areas.
And the whole thing about it is just it's what they do. I mean, it's not like these fancy machines, or I mean, some distilleries have it, and don't get me wrong, but when you see the old fashioned people, that's pretty cool. I didn't tour very long. I just drove by.
Is that still what your wife drinks? Is Jack Daniels?
No, she drinks rosé now.
Rosé or champagne rosé?
She drinks mostly rosé still, and what she doesn't drink champagne as much as you would think, with it of just being outside in excess whenever she wants it. But no.
Okay, so then besides now spirits, what about in the wine field? Where are some of the places? I mean, visiting wineries and vineyards and all that. So where are some of the places that you've gone?
Mostly, I only in Italy a little bit. I've never honestly been to any French or Spanish wineries, and I haven't even been to our winery in Epernay.
Oh,
so we're going to go at Oktoberfest.
Champagne, by the way.
We're gonna go to Oktoberfest in September, and we're gonna go down to the winery right after that. So
Oktoberfest in Germany?
Yeah.
So Germany is. You said you're gonna go down to France?
I just mean to France.
Oh, okay.
I meant down to.
God, maybe I'm seeing this world upside down.
But we're we're gonna go there first. We're gonna go to.
Are you gonna go to Munich?
Yeah.
God, it was like in the 60s, bro. My father was stationed in Germany.
That's where you grew up.
So
really?
Yeah, from 7th grade to I finished 11th grade there, right? And so anyway, we used to go down to Oktoberfest because back then I think drinking age was 15.
And you used to
Is there really a drinking age though? Is there like
no.
It's kind of just
and you used
whatever,
to drink
right?
back then?
I used to drink, yeah.
From that young of an age?
I'm not saying. I can't recall. But Oktoberfest,
Neither here nor there.
Keli'i, they had these tents. It's huge, and all these Bavarian dressed servers carrying these steins. Steins. It's like clay steins. Oh my God, it's crazy.
You know what so he does these Zoom tastings like maybe a couple of Mondays a month, and the last one I haven't been on in a while, but the last one that I was on who was the Riesling producer?
The Riesling, or was it Reinhold Hart?
Or Johannes?
Yeah, Johannes Hart. Yeah, he's from the Mosel.
So they were showing us like all these, like it was like a PowerPoint slide on this Zoom of what their region looks like.
That was first.
I was tripping on how beautiful it is too. You don't think of, I wouldn't think of Germany as, I'm like, oh my God, that place is like beautiful destination. I have to go. After seeing that, I was like, I want to go there.
It is. I've never been, but Mark. He's German, full German.
Is he?
He speaks fluent German. He played pro soccer in Germany.
Becker,
yes. I know, mind blown, right? He runs really fast. So you would never guess that of him, but he speaks absolutely fluent, perfect German. And we have business partners that are also based in Germany, so they go every year. So they said, you guys got to come over. We'll have the Lederhosen in your room and give us your sizes and all that stuff. So we're gonna go. I want to go check it out, and from there we'll go down to Champagne and maybe tour a little bit.
Go up to Champagne.
I mean, up to Champagne. I keep saying down to Champagne.
France is above Germany.
I don't know. I'm just playing with them.
So I mean, other than that, no, just mostly California. When you work for a distributor, they don't give you a long leash unless you're like you or Patrick or Roberto. The people that are specifically in that. But when I started to move up in the in that corporate distribution world, like your trips become like a meeting with Heaven Hill or a meeting with whatever, right? And it's in some city in a somewhere.
In a hotel.
Yeah. You're not going into once in a while. Like we'll go see something, but it has to be an easy flow for us, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going out of your way to go do that.
Well, some wineries like Chateau Saint Michel, I know they have incentive trips every year for people that reach certain levels of the quotas and stuff like that. So they go to Washington State, and they buff them out. And there's all these large wineries that do that kind of stuff.
The best hospitality winery I've ever been to in the U.S. it was King Estate, Southern Oregon.
Yeah,
that estate is ridiculous. They have a guy that makes charcuterie full time. That's his only job. It's not to like cook or do anything else. Just make cured meats. I met this guy. I was like, that is the best job in the entire world. Like, who has a job that just makes cured meats?
He's happy to meet you.
Yeah, he will. Never gets old.
Honestly. If you ever have availability to come back, we should have him do a fine wines and local grinds episode too, because he knows all the spots to eat at.
That'd be fun.
I was going to, well, that's why I brought that dry aku for you guys. Because I saw Ola brought the thing from, Ola Raposo brought from Helena's on one of your podcasts. And I was like, I was going to go down to my classmate's place in Wahiowa today.
What is that?
Because they make it out of their house, but they make the best, like lomio io, smoked fish, smoked meat, like a crack seed, like a Hawaiian crack seed. So it has opai inside, dry aku, dry squid. So I was going to bring that in. I was like, I ran out of time. So I was so irritated. So I had to go get some dry aku and some poke to bring in.
So what high school did you go to?
Come here, Mel.
I knew you were like that.
Yeah. See, yeah.
That's why you're
Can you
like
tell?
that.
I mean, anybody who's not watching this, I'm super white. But yeah, so yeah.
White on.
Yeah.
So,
used to this.
so, you know, I go on different kinds of wine trips. It's just my wife and I normally, and then once in a while my cousin. And so, and the wineries I go to are one-person kind of wineries, and so they don't have a kitchen or they don't have entertainment budgets or anything like that.
Huge
So
restaurants and all that stuff.
it's just a different experience.
I think
I let go.
the artistry with making wine. So being in the distribution business for so long, you get I don't know, Jay is right. Remember, pragmatic, I would say, is the right word for what we end up dealing with, right? Because at the end of the day, wine that we bring on has to sell. Like you're a different position as a sommelier. You're being able to find and talk about great wines and great producers and the vineyard and the soil and the terroir. As a distributor, at the end of the day, like I want to have great wines in the book, and that all matters. But at the end of the day, is that wine going to sell? Right? Is that wine going to sell to somebody?
For.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's what you're paid for, and that's how the distributor makes their money. So they can't pay you X amount of dollars. First of all, if you're not selling, but second of all, if you're not outselling last year, and so every year they have to see growth. Otherwise, why should they pay your salary?
Yeah.
And why should they give you a raise or an incentive?
Yeah.
So it's a business. Whereas me, it's a very different sphere that I tend to dabble in. I'm more looking for the Helenas.
Yeah.
Helena's that small little place, that authentic, and they do this and they hang the short rib. And,
Ever since that day that he came to lunch with us, he's been nonstop talking.
It's so good.
Well, I forgot. I just, Helena's was always lines, and so I just don't like lines. So that's why it was out of sight, out of mind. And to be honest with you, I also used to really like to go to Leon's Hawaiian Cafe.
Yeah.
Over there. Oh,
I remember.
God, man.
Yeah, they're
that
good.
food is like was crazy. I was so sad when they closed.
Having the small artists like that, to get back to your wine and your experience. Luckily, like you're saying, I had a background working for fine wine imports, and working with Money and Mapu for those years gave me a solid foundation in what the importance of actual fine wine was like. Versus what is the commodity wine, right? What that market looks like, and going into a distributor, having a fine wine background was important to me because I've always, I always can lean towards that, and like, okay, is this wine actually good? Can it sell? Great. I mean, whatever. We're gonna sell Menage a Trois wine, but we're gonna sell 1 million cases of it. That's all great, but like at the end of the day, like if you only drink that kind of wine, that's all you ingest. You get less and less enthusiastic about the business of wine.
Well, I just try to keep it all separate. One's not better than the other. So sometimes, you have to eat fast food.
Sure.
And sometimes you have a craving for Helenas. Or sometimes, it's not one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think
there's room for both. Same thing with wineries. There's room for,
sure.
And the very fact that people are in fact drinking wine is a good thing.
Absolutely.
And so the more people that help to encourage people, nurture people to enjoy wine, especially with their food, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned.
What you were saying to Bubba, our boxing coach, likes to drink Fruscato. And what my dad was telling him on his episode, I was rewatching it today as I was editing, was that those kind of wineries are trying to make wine super accessible, which is good.
Yeah.
That's like people's first introduction into the world of wine, or a lot of people.
Absolutely, but I think there is also price point aside. There's good and bad versions of all price points.
Absolutely.
So just because a wine is inexpensive doesn't mean it's a wine worth somebody drinking.
Yeah. Right.
Because access at all points, I don't think it's all equal. Like you can make a wine, inexpensive wine that's also like a good wine. It's delicious, right? And it's $7.
Right.
Or whatever, and then there's bad wines that are $100.
Right.
So there's all those things in between, and I think our job as professionals in any form of the business is to differentiate between the people that are doing good work or doing good job or a good company or making good product that people are going to enjoy, or ones that aren't doing that. And that's kind of our business is to weed through that. From a distributor's perspective, we weed through it by either bringing wines on or not bringing them into Hawaii, because Hawaii, we're so far away from the mainland. We have a big filter, that ocean.
Let's use this to springboard into trying the wines.
Well, before we do that, I just want to spend a little time talking to Keli'i a little bit more. So so what got you into enjoying wine?
I was cooking. I don't know if you're familiar with Kukio Golf and Beach Club on the Big Island.
Yeah. You were working with David Paul.
I was working I opened it with David Paul. Yes. Wow. Me, David, special. Me, David Paul, Todd Constantino. Yeah. There was 7 of us that opened the kitchen. Everybody was hammers. Everybody was really good in their own right. I just come off of working for the Four Seasons, and before that, I was working for Paul Allen as his private chef. So I lived on his yacht for about a year as his private chef. I left that, went to go work for the Four Seasons, and then went
Four
to go
Seasons where?
Kuala.
Oh.
Yeah, I was up there. So anyway, I was over there. I was in the kitchen. I was managing the kitchen at the time, and it was the guy that used to manage Kit Nagelman came in one day.
Kit Nagelman, wow, that's a throw.
Yeah, that's a throwback. So Kit Nagelman comes into to talk to our F&B director, and he says, "I'm looking for a wine salesperson for the Big Island." And he goes, "Well, I don't have anybody in the front of the house, but you may want to talk to this guy that runs the kitchen, Keli'i." And so we introduced us, and we talked. We went and met up in Waimea and had a coffee. And I didn't realize that your family was Fine Wine Imports. I had no idea. I didn't know who Kit was. I'd never put the two pieces together. And then we started talking. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's a Schneider family." Blah blah blah. So that was my introduction into fine wine. I knew nothing. Like I knew literally nothing about wine at all. And I would go to a small little wine market called Kona Wine Market in town, Fern.
He just texted me like
really
3 weeks ago. He lives in Canada or something now.
He's from Canada.
Yeah, I know, but he just texted me out of the clear blue.
What I would do is I would go in, and at that time Mop would send me like 4 wines a week, right? And I'd go and I'd get my wines. I had my Ed Meads in the bag and some Fran Casella stuff, and I'd go out and I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know nothing. So I'd go in, I'd taste Kona Wine Market in the morning, and I'd taste Fern, and he'd go, "Well, this wine is this, and this wine is that, and this wine is this." And I go all day long, and I just go and regurgitate all of that all around the marketplace for that whole, I have to hold on to. Nowadays, people don't realize like a bottle of wine has to last us like 4 days at that time. So I'm pouring people like, a quarter ounce, tasting and whatever, because I'm trying to milk my wine bottle for the couple of days. Now they just pull a bottle of wine, they taste it, and they throw it away or whatever. So I did that, and I just learned more and more and more. And then.
But did you enjoy wine when you're doing that?
I started to, and the one that really said that was there's 2 wines that were like really got my head wrapped around wine. One was a Sancerre that Mapu had sent me for Thanksgiving. She sent up some extra samples. I had the Sancerre
from Casella.
From Casella.
So it was Jean Reverdy.
Yes, Reverdy Sancerre, exactly.
No, it's Jean Reverdy.
There's also not the Reverdy one. Yeah. So I tasted that wine, and I was like, oh, that's what that's supposed to taste like. And then it got me digging into what Sancerre is and the area and all the stuff. And I was like, oh, this is super interesting. And the next wine that really kind of opened my head up to wine was a Patton Hall 04. I can't remember what vineyard it was, but we were drinking it at Olive Tree.
Chardonnay or Pinot?
Pinot Noir at Olive Tree in Kahala. And we were drinking the wine, and Mapu brought it to dinner, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this isn't like a Pinot Noir I've ever tasted. We've tasted a bunch of wine. It's velvety and rich and delicious, but structured and not too heavy. And I was like, this wine is so good. It really changed my opinion of what wine could be, because it was so far and away better than anything I'd ever personally tasted. And and I see Donald all the time. I've told him the story a million times. I'm sure he's sick of hearing it, but he's the one. That wines that he made were the wine that really got me launched into a fine wine career. And then from there, when I left fine wine, I went to Better Brands. When it was Better Brands at the time, as their wine person, I was a wine educator with no experience selling wine. And and Roberto and everybody, I have no accreditation whatsoever, like a level 1 SOM thing, and I'm out there trying to sell wine in the marketplace. I visited you a couple of times, and you're over at Vino, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I really didn't. But my wine tastings were fun. Yeah. I go in, and if it was get a dull moment, I was pretty good at pepping people up. If it got too quiet, I'd pour around the shots of tequila, like do whatever, anything to entertain them. So but the point was when they left a tasting, I think they got something. They were entertained. They had a good time, and they may have learned one or two things, not a whole bunch of stuff, but one thing more than they knew when they came in, and that's all they needed. So I built a career on just making people like learn one more little thing than they knew before we sat down, or before we did the tasting, or before we did the whatever event. And I think that for us as people that work in the business, we can't bombard people with information. You're really good at that. You give people whatever level they're at, you just give them the information so they can digest it. And that to me is the most important part. And I built an entire career based on that model, just being able to communicate
it's like the show.
Something.
He's the show behind the bar,
Yeah.
As a bartender, he's the same thing.
Yeah.
So, Keli'i, of all the beverages, when it's time to drink at home, you just pile work, what do you normally drink?
Honestly, I don't drink at home like on a normal night. I'm this.
You're a social drinker.
I'm only drink when I'm out or with other people. People are over, I'll drink. But I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't seem appealing to me to drink. But if I do drink something at home, it's usually a beer, or I like to drink tequila neat, yeah.
He does something else to relax, man.
Yeah, and
I don't.
And then
sometimes.
The other question I would have: so, whenever you eat out or you eat, do you ever consider wine with your food?
I do when it's yes, when it's appropriate. I don't feel like I don't need to. I drink so many beverages, whether it's sake, beer, wine, spirits, that I don't feel the need to insert wine into every occasion like I did when I was only selling, when I was only in the wine universe. Yeah. Now I feel like it's about a quarter of the time when I'm out dining, I'll order a bottle of wine. If I'm at a steakhouse, obviously I'm drinking wine. If I'm at Rego and I'm drinking wine, right? But I'm not drinking it at Helena's. Mm-hmm. Right, I don't feel the need to go to Chinese food and drink wine. I know you could pair it; it does work.
Right.
But if I'm going to go to a Thai restaurant, I'm going to drink a ice cold beer. If I'm going to have an alcoholic beverage, right?
Practical.
Well, I it's just different, so when you do go to France or you go to Italy or wherever in the old world, wine is just a way of life there. Mm-hmm. It's very different than America. We're jumping on the wine and food bandwagon way later, and I truly believe, even though I can never prove it, back in the really old days, water wasn't necessarily safe to drink. So wine had alcohol. Yeah. And so I think it was safer to drink. And so wine became the choice of beverage, I think for a lot of places. Mm-hmm. And when you therefore eat the food, you drink the wine. So when the Italian immigrants or the European immigrants moved to the United States, that's when they started growing grapes in all these crazy places so that they can harvest it, take it home to San Francisco or wherever they lived, and then make homemade wine in their beverage for their dinner table. Yeah. Right? And so it's just a way of life. We in America, we're behind that eight ball. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm saying it's acquired. It's a learned behavior or enjoyment or something.
Yeah, and I think when you get more and more seasoned in wine, most of my friends that work in the wine business still, that work on the floor or purchasing or whatever, we all we loop back around. We end up drinking like old world whites. Because at the end of the rainbow, I think you drink like light-bodied, effervescent, sometimes like just quaffable, delicious, low-alcohol white wines. I think is my go-to. And occasionally I'll drink bigger wines, and for the if I drink Pinot or some Zin or whatever. But at the end of the day, like I just drink. If I'm gonna drink wine, I drink Picpoul de Pinet. My go-to at home, like
Punch pounder.
It's a delicious wine. It's always been delicious. I've never not enjoyed a bottle of that wine. If it's on a menu, I'm ordering it 100% of the time, guaranteed. No matter what.
What is that?
What is what?
What is that wine?
Picpoul is a grape, and the Picpoul de Pinet is an appellation in southern France. And the guy who really carved out a niche for that wine, because there's many others now, was Fran Casella. So Fran Casella was the guy who passed the master. We passed the same year. And he has Casella Peri-Fille, which is his own importing company. He's kind of like a Kermit Lynch, if you will. And he was the one that made that thing famous. And the interesting thing about Fran is he always found these wines that were super affordable, so they didn't break the bank. Because the Picpoul de Pinet is still maybe 11 something a bottle in the store.
I buy it, a couple bottles at a time at Fujioka's or from wherever I'm at. Fujioka's I go there a lot, but Yeah, so I go inside there and I buy it. And the cool thing about that wine is all these my wife and their friends, and they're all, they're beer drinkers. They only, they're in this rut of only drinking rosé or Pinot Noir, right? Like, if you guys are coming over to my house, here's what we're gonna do for this week. We're only drinking interesting wine. You're gonna put away your California Pinot, put away whatever rosé you think you're gonna drink. We're gonna drink some cool wines, and you may like them, you may not like them. Doesn't care. But we're gonna drink some Suave. We're gonna drink some Picpoul. We're gonna drink some Albarino. We're gonna drink some Gruner. Like, we're gonna put wines that you guys are gonna enjoy, and they, you may not like them all, but you're gonna try them all. And then now, after that experience of me like forcing it down their throat, when they come over to my house, or even I went to one of their houses last night actually, and they had a bottle of Picpoul. So it's just
what
passing that
rosé
on.
does your wife drink, by the way?
She usually drinks Martin Ray.
Oh,
Martin Ray, Angeline. Russ from Martin Ray. He was when I was at Fine Wine Imports, he was our largest supplier, which was like, I don't know, 45 cases a month or something. It wasn't a lot, but he's still one of my best friends to this day.
Martin Ray is your best friend?
No, Russ O'Hare was from Martin Ray Winery with Courtney Benham from Blackstone.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's what he just sends me cases and I send him champagne, so it works out well.
But to answer that, I'm kind of a Pinot guy myself, bro.
Are you?
Light Pinots. We just had we probably tasted like 4 different Pinots last night, or 3 different Pinots.
Pinot's good because it's
more.
It's so diverse. I mean, from everything from Russian River style to Old World style Pinots, and you can get everything kind of in between. So it's like it has a wide swath.
If you like quaffable whites, I love light reds.
Yeah.
Like, that's my jam right now. We had Richard Betts
on
here, and I tried his Grenache, and that was like out of this world.
He was proctoring when I sat for my first level Somm thing. The one we had, the first one that we had in Hawaii. Yeah, Betts was here proctoring that.
Oh, was he?
Test. Yeah. I saw a lot of your guests on Michael Winterbottom. We sat for our sake certification together not that long ago.
He's a good guy.
He's great.
Yeah,
he's great.
Let's taste the wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to pause for a minute. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here we are. We're going to taste a little bit of wine. My favorite wine is, no, not tonight, but we're not going to do that one today. So we're going to try 2 wines. By the way, Cully's mother's right over there, and she wants to be on, but Cully wouldn't let her on. But
so rude, Cully. You're so rude. Let your mom on.
She had a couple vodkas. Come on, bring her on.
She birthed you. Come on, bro.
She's put up with you for 29 years.
So like we were saying before we broke, that Pinots were my jam right now. Yes. These light style Pinots, and we had a wine tasting at his house last night, where we tried how many different wines?
32.
Bro, my mouth was so annihilated after like the 6th wine. We're spitting it out too.
That's a lot of wine.
One person wasn't spitting it out, but everybody else was.
I can guess who that person is. The guy with the wooden leg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was really good tasters. As Mark Shishido and Ramel, Chris Ramel, and
Shani
Sono, Micah Suderman.
Legends.
So, yeah, it was pretty insightful tasting last night.
Was it 32?
I was just a fly on the wall.
I did sit when we used to do the fine wine ones, and that's probably like now people sit and they whine about the tasting for Young's Market, and it would be like, I don't know, 40 wines or whatever. Like when we were at Fine Wine, I think the record was like 120 wines in one sitting. Like, it's so bad, like your tongue is so destroyed by like 50, right? You're just like, oh, I can't do anything more. So all it tastes good is like stuff with like a lot of fruit and a lot of alcohol, right? It's all you can taste after a while.
Yeah.
But it was a good time. So now I don't feel so bad. I don't have to taste a lot of wine. Like, now that I don't get to taste wine at all for a living, I taste like only my wine. So tasting 30 sounds pretty fun, actually.
Yeah, and it was wines from everywhere. I mean, it was really crazy, the diversity. But Cully really likes Pinot Noir, so he wanted us to talk about these 2.
Yeah.
So the one on the left is the CF Pinot Noir 2018. The one on the right here is the Aubon Clément 2016 Pinot Noir, and it's called L'Armes de Grappe. It's just a special bottling that Clendenin used to make every now and then.
And he just passed away too, right?
Yeah.
A few weeks ago.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, legendary winemaker. And so anyway, so the CF Pinot, just to let you know, the CF wines, well, let's try it first. I shouldn't tell you about the wine. You can see how light it is in color. I'm
definitely not spitting these out tonight.
You can see how light it is in color.
There's not even a bucket here or anything.
No.
Yeah, that's good.
These are going down the hatch, bro.
I told you.
After watching, I don't know if we should name him or not, but after watching him not spit out 32 wines, I said, I'm going to be there one day. One of these days, I will be at that level.
Have you ever been to a sake tasting, like Joy Sake or any of those shows?
Oh.
Because there's no buckets
He has
anywhere
a
in the
funny
entire
story
show.
about that though. But
There's no buckets.
when we were my mom took us my sister was studying abroad in Italy, and my mom took me with them when I was in 10th grade and took me to a wine tasting, and I was like, spitting out, that's waste.
Weak.
I was trashed after. So
Yeah, you kind of have to. But that's the weird thing about a sake tasting is they don't even leave you the option, so you have to drink it all. So by the end, you're annihilated.
I can't drink.
You got to
sake.
see how many wines I try, when I'm traveling. It'll blow your mind.
You spit though,
Yeah, but still, I mean,
it's a lot of wine.
It damages your palate. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like,
I mean, my tongue is still sensitive.
and when I go to Germany, because the German wines have such a high acid, I bring Tums and Rolaids and stuff, and I crush them, and I put them in my mouth, and then I rinse my mouth and spit it all out. I don't swallow any of it, but just because
to
the acid, it's just German wines have such high acidity, and most people don't know because most German wines are slightly sweet. So it's incredible, man.
Your teeth hurt after too?
Yeah, I mean, well, my best friend, he can't handle.
Really?
Yeah, it's painful for him
Yeah.
because we taste so many wines. Keli'i, it's crazy. Anyway, so there was 32 wines last night. And so for me, Pinot Noir should be elusive. Pinot Noir should be alluring. Pinot Noir should be light and colored and finesse and feminine and pretty. And so that's, today what's popular is these big, dark, ultra ripe things. And that, to me, that's Pinot Noir, but it's not my version of Pinot Noir. I'm not saying my understanding is the best or anything like that. It's just I wanted to say that before you delve into these two wines.
We tasted this wine first last night, and we tasted it blind. And everybody around the table was talking about how if they could drink wine like this every day, they're living a good life. This is like my favorite style of wine right now.
And the impressive part is you've you've had the Riesling and Pinot Noir for how many years now? How long have you been producing these wines? 01.
But when I was at Fine Wine Imports with money, we had it under the Charles label.
Oh,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
had a Merlot and some other wines.
That's
But
what we
the
did with
CF
Roy's,
wine,
right? It was a Roy's wine.
No, Roy's is a different label. And so the
I remember the
CF
Charles label.
wines.
It was Mapu's artwork was on the Charles label.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
And then the CF wines started with the 01 vintage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, you've been, and I've talked about this with a bunch of industry people, Vendrell in particular from Monkey Pot and Mocha restaurants. But you've had you can stay on subject because you've been talking light-bodied red wine, old road wines, and Riesling for 20 plus years. And I mean, I'm not even that young, but we're so our attention span's so short. I get to drink one wine for a little while and I'm really into it and then I move on to something else. But the way you've stuck to these wines and producing a wine like this with quaffable with that high acid level, it really works well with food.
What do you think of this wine?
I love that it's just I like the light bodiness of it and I like the acid level.
And the perfume.
Yeah, I want to have a wine that finishes and I want to go back for another drink, another sip of the wine. That's really for me is when I'm going to a wine that I want to sit down and drink, glass after glass, it has to have a good acid level to me. And this does.
So just to comment on what you were saying, it's not by choice that I like necessarily Riesling or Pinot Noir or lighter wines like this. More is just a question of when we were off camera, we were talking about, I asked you specifically about, do you have wine with food? And I mentioned to you that in the old world, it's a natural. When you have food on the table, you got wine on the table. It's a lifestyle. That's the way it works. And so those kind of wines tend to be lighter like this and more delicious and gulpable and a little higher acidity because that's what goes with the food. But most importantly, gulpable.
Yeah.
Not alcoholic, not oaky, not bitter. So that's what we try to recreate. So with the CF wines, I couldn't find wines with a consistent quality, a certain quality, at a certain price point with availability all year round. So I went out and created them. And so each of the CF wines, there was 7, it was a different winemaker. And each of them was intentional. I knew exactly who I wanted.
You think stylistically it stayed true to what you first did? Do you think, you have any of your old one sitting around still?
I have some 02 of this Pinot. But here's the thing that's crazy. Looking back on it, all modesty aside, it was freaking genius because the wines are more current than ever. And the wines haven't risen in price all these years.
Starting this was genius? Or what
For
was
me,
genius?
this was the perfect Pinot Noir. Same thing with all the Rieslings and the Müller Thurgau. They're more current now than ever.
Yeah.
You know, and the prices haven't raised. And the quality is even better than when we started because it's so fine-tuned. So let me explain to you so you'll better understand why. So this wine, so you know all the different Pinot Noir makers I would know out of California and Oregon, right? So you can imagine it created quite a stir when I chose this particular person. All the other people like Clendenin would sit there going, what? You know, and the whole point, I chose this guy for several different reasons. Number one, he's essentially a one-man operation, one-man show. His family and this other family have owned the vineyard for a long time. And so that's first thing, family owned and operated. Second thing, he uses an heirloom heritage vine called Martini. So Martini is not flashy, flamboyant, showy like all the other Pinot Noirs. It's more feminine, it's more reticent, it's more, you got to coax it out of the glass. I like that. Showy and brash and forward and everything like that only goes so far for me. And especially with food. I don't need showiness. I just need completeness and balance and transparency.
Who is this that we're talking about?
Gary Burke from Costa d'Oro, Gold Coast. Okay, third thing, his vineyard is on a mesa, elevated, very sand dominated. So sand, unlike other soils, creates transparency, fragility, sheer, as opposed to hard. So it's more pliable with foods. And plus that, it's Martini. So you have Martini, sand. And the third thing is that this vineyard, because it's up on the mesa, this wind just pounds these vineyards. And when you look on the outskirt of his vineyard, all the vines are leaning and they're all like that because, they're ferociously pounded every day. And this is in the Santa Maria Valley. So, during June, it's 68 degrees versus the 106 that you have in Napa Valley. So it's very much cooler. The wind adds to that. And these vines were planted in 89, 90, and 91. So they're 30-something years old, and they're on their own roots. This wine sees no new oak, only old oak. And to add a little bit of... because of that sand, this wine also, because it's Martini, has a savoriness. People talk about acid and tannins and whatnot when it pairs with food, but savoriness is super important. And people don't understand what that means. This wine innately has savoriness. And then he adds to that, because he adds the lees from his reserve wine on it to give it more umami, more savoriness.
What do you mean by savoriness? Explain that to me.
It's like instead of cherries, berries, and all that stuff, it's like this umami. It's like this. It's something extra. It's a delicious. It's a. I don't know what the word is. It's just something that's savory. It's like a food that's savory as opposed to just stir fried. It's long cooked. It's this wine. So
more like a classic umami kind of flavor.
Yeah, exactly. And look how light this wine. It captures all of that, and then look how light it is.
And what does this cost in the store?
$23 maybe.
In
24.
The store?
Yeah.
And it's available in the stores?
I'm not sure. I don't look for this wine. We made it for our restaurants, and the whole thing about it was I'm not one to be exclusive. So if stores or other restaurants want to carry it, right on. I'm not going to sit there going, no, it's only ours.
This wine is so delicious.
It's so silky and seductively textured and so pretty. But it's not for everybody because most people want black Pinot nowadays,
See, when we were talking about that last night, we were tasting with all these guys last night, right? And they were all saying that this isn't really necessarily a wine that's in fashion. And I'm just getting to learn right now. And I was like, how the fuck is this not in fashion? Yeah. This is like, sorry, I swore, but we're not getting sponsored by Hawaiian Airlines.
We're good now? We're good,
okay. So we can swear on this podcast.
Thank goodness.
But how is this not in fashion to me? Like, this wine is so, like they said all last night, is something that they would like to drink every day. I would love to drink this every day.
Two of the people kept asking me, can we get, how much do you produce? They wanted to make sure they could have continuity. I'm not going to say which of the top some ways, but this wine I think is very, for those people that, there's different occasions. Sometimes you want loud banging music and sometimes you want something soft and soothing. This is more finesse. This is more, just it's not meant to be the centerpiece. It's meant to be complementary.
It's very much it's in an old world style. I think when I taste a wine like this, because when nowadays and people think of Pinot Noir, especially from California, you're thinking, like you were saying, big, inky. But there's great versions, like we were talking about earlier with drinking the Patton Hall. From the first great Pinot Noir I had was that wine was not this. That wine was
power.
Very much velvet and Luden's cherries and all that stuff. And this is not that, but this is delicious.
So the winemaker actually was Patton Hall was James Hall. Mm-hmm. He specialized in Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's essentially kind of like a Pinot Noir made by a Cabernet Sauvignon maker. Whereas the CF Cabernet is a Cabernet crafted by a Pinot Noir maker.
Oh, you mean the CF Pinot?
No, the CF Cabernet is a Cabernet crafted by a Pinot Noir maker, so therefore much more elegant and suave.
Yeah.
The winemaker, just like the chef, can greatly influence whether this is going to be more Japanese or more Euro or more Asian, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And your style, like this, what you're saying with the Cabernet is a lighter style made by a Pinot Noir producer.
Well, think about our restaurants. Mm-hmm. It's all Asian.
Yeah.
So Sanse is like spice, sweet, salty. What those components does not like oak, alcohol, bitterness. It exaggerates those characteristics.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So we have to carry Cabernet Sauvignon. We have to carry Pinot Noir because that's what the public wants. So let's just do it in a way that's not going to clash with our foods. Mm-hmm. So that's why I specifically chose Martini Clone. I specifically chose Gary Breck because it's sand. It's cooler. He harvests his grapes 2 weeks to 3 weeks later than Biennacido, which is like a 5-minute drive more closer to the mountains. Mm-hmm. So longer hang time, more physiological maturity without the heaviness. This wine's not heavy at all.
No.
So all of those things were intentional. So same thing with the Cabernet. It's Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. And 95% of that wine is organically farmed. The 5% that's not is the Merlot. And it comes from Biennacido. Biennacido is not organically farmed. The wine spends, depending on the vintage, 24 to 30 months in Taranto barrels, expensive barrels for that long, losing 8% evaporation, and it's still in the store for $22 a bottle. It's all intentional.
Not a lot of margin left in there.
I just think it's more of a favor. I mean, because of our long-standing relationship with these two guys as well. Because I have so much respect for them, but I'm sure they reciprocate that because we've had such a long.
You're saying that this isn't necessarily the centerpiece, though. It to me it is. It's like so pretty and subtly pretty that it's because it's such so much nuances in it that this is the centerpiece.
Well, second wine is the showpiece.
Yeah.
So you can taste the difference.
Fuck, this thing is delicious, though.
Yeah, but this is not a trophy wine. Number 2 is a trophy wine. It's the kind you're going to put in the cellar. It's the kind that's going to get the scores and et cetera, et cetera.
So what is number 2?
So this is Au Bon Clément, and this bottling is called L'Armes de Grappe. So it's only made not every vintage. So to me personally, the greatest single vineyard for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir consistently out of California is Sanford and Benedict. That vineyard it's crazy how good that vineyard, all the wines from that vineyard can be, So Sanford and Benedict, depends on who you talk to. There's a lot of controversy. It was either planted in 71 or 73. So some people say 71. A lot of the wineries that use the grapes say 71. Clendenin says it was 73.
Wouldn't he be the authority?
I think so, but sometimes those guys, they drink a lot, so I don't know if they recall what year was what year.
It wasn't that long ago. I was born in 71. It wasn't that long ago.
They were also saying he misplaces cases of wine and stuff like that, too.
So this wine was planted in 73, let's say. It's own rooted. It's not grafted on. It's own rooted still. So that's remarkable. It's not only the greatest single vineyard for me for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but it's all own rooted. This wine is made different from his regular Sanford and Benedict. So the Au Bon Clément, Sanford and Benedict, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir are two of the very best out of California, period. So from that, he separates the oldest cuvée, the original parcel, and he vinifies it separately with 100% whole clusters, which it gives more savoriness and umami to the wine. This wine is aged in 100% new 350-liter barrels, Francois Frere, and so top barrels. So when you smell it and taste this wine, it's got oak, but it's not oaky. Even though it's 100% for 20 to 24 months in new oak barrels. And that's because this vineyard has so much pedigree that it just soaks up the oak, and the oak actually frames it. Too many wines to me are too oaky, and that's cool. Some people like oak, but that clashes with food for me. And you know I'm more food oriented. So this wine to me is like Grand Cru. I mean, there's no such thing officially, but I think this is like tour de force, as good as California Pinot Noir.
And how much is this a bottle?
I don't even know. I didn't even know if we were able to get any of this stuff in Hawaii. It's pretty. This wine is pretty hard to get.
Sorry, guys.
Bummers.
You can get this one.
But you could see this thing has. You taste this, and then you go back to the CF Pinot. You'll see how simple the CF Pinot. It's not one is better than the other. The intent for both these wines is different.
Is this vintage on this wine?
16.
I think one could go
I
forever.
think this wine is stellar. You know, I have a lot of experience with Aubon Clément. I think this is one of the best wines he's made. Seriously, I think this wine
This specific vintage?
Yes, I think this wine is fantastic.
And
I
it
think
could
it's
have aged
really good.
longer, you think?
Way longer.
Really?
Oh,
So
that's got,
I just had a
That is fantastic.
I just had a 91 92 Aubon Clément Le Beaujeu des Sioux, which is their entry level reserve kind of bottling, and it was beautiful. It was the 92. This wine is how many years is that? Let's say 90
29.
29 years.
Yeah.
This wine is going to be like that. It's going to be 20
So we
30
opened it
years.
too early.
that wine
Yeah,
could go
but-
30 years.
But
Sure.
I think this wine is spectacular. If you look at it, it's not oaky, it's not alcoholic, it's not overdone. You know, it's just like having a dish, like Helena's. These wines are like Helena's. It's just one, small operations and everything done personally, and I mean, from the service to everything. It's that same kind of thing that I like.
Cully wasn't lying. You're really into Helena's right now.
I'm just using that because we have that as a common denominator.
ever since that day at lunch, he keeps saying that was the best meal he's had.
It was. It's good every
What
time.
do you think of this wine?
It's such a departure from the CF wine. Structurally, it's just a bigger, more wine. Obviously, the pedigree in the grapes. I mean, it comes through. It sings through. The quality of the fruit that's in this wine is exceptional. And then I like that it's not over manipulated with oak. You don't taste that. It doesn't come through really strong. And there's still pretty punchy acid in it. It's a young wine, but that's gonna last for a long time. This is the kind of wine that you're the Chuck's expert, but 10, 20 years you can sit on this wine and it'll still be delicious. Yeah.
At least more.
This-
So
yeah.
so 73. How many years old are those wines?
47.
47-year-old vines, man.
What
Unrooted.
is the typical lifespan for?
Oh, it just
vines?
depends. Every year, theoretically, the bunches get smaller and it's more intense
And-
and concentrated,
and
but the production goes down. So most people,
Pull
even
on.
the greatest wines out of France, they'll pull vines when they're 25 years old because it's no longer producing
And when
economically
when you
feasible.
say own rooted, is that better quality than something that's grafted on?
There's no one answer to anything, but when you have unrooted, so when you have grafted, you have one plant here, a different cousin plant.
Rootstock. Yeah.
It's a cousin. It's Lambrusca, Vitis lambrusca. To that, you're grafting on Vitis vinifera. So two cousin vines. So to me, in my mind, somehow the vascular system doesn't line up perfectly.
And you
So-
can taste
so-
that?
Oh my God! When you have a unrooted versus a rooted, I've had them at several different wineries across the world. It's like night and day.
Really?
Because think about it, the vascular system doesn't line up perfectly. So something's got to affect
Yeah.
change, right? So both of these wines are own rooted. And how often do you see that in California? So 1990, how many years is that? 30, 31, 32 years. These vines are 32 years. This one's 47. So you have old vine, you have heirloom heritage vines, not all the scientific. Dijon clones are more forward, more snazzy, more flamboyant. These vines have been in California for a long time, and they want to be there. They're happy to be there. You don't have
They're
to
supposed
force
to be
anything.
there.
Yeah. So they're you know them, your mother knows them, Cheryl knows them, everybody knows these people. I mean, we have a long time connection with all these people, and for the right reasons. You know, I respect these people for what they do, and their wines are so artisan and handcrafted, and you know, it's part of them is in these wines. You know, you met Gary Burke. He's just very uplifting and happy, and you know, he's not sitting there trying to prove himself or he has to brag about who he is and all that stuff. You know, so I think his wine shows that, and he's making the wine so that he knows what the vision is, and that's what he every year is different. He tinkers with it all the time. I think his wine is terrific. I'm proud about it anyway.
I think that wine is absolutely terrific.
So
That's the great thing about the wine business is the access to the people that do the things, right? You don't see that in banking or in any other type of business, commodity business or whatever it is, manufacturing. But in this business, your relationship with the people that either grow the grapes or make the wine is so close. And even for somebody who's entering the business, it's still close. My first work with ever when I started selling wine was with Randall Graham from Bonnie Doon. And it was like, I was like, what does he look like? They're like, you're going to know when you see him. Then he ended up with like, he had a lei with like one flower left on it and like a string. And then we were doing a dinner at Merriman's and I just sat with him and it was like, I'm brand new to the business. And so I was like, I don't know, he wanted to order wine at like 11 in the morning and like not being in that business for that long. I was like, oh, is this cool? Like, can we just drink now? He's like, bro, if we can't drink, nobody can drink. It's like, we're the guys that are supposed to be doing this stuff. But it blew me away and it always stuck with me. The access to the people that are either making the wine or growing the grapes, and that you get to know them as personal friends, like you have for so many years, and Money has, and Keli'i has, and that's it's very unique. It doesn't happen in distillery business. It's unique to wine, I think, and that is such a opportunity for us as people that work in the business to be able to talk to and be able to call or text or be friends with these people who are like icons. They're the people who are running things and have forever and ever, and they're out there making these great wines, and you get to have a relationship with them. It's so unique to wine. That's what I think is really special about the wine business.
So when I was growing up in this industry, I never really personally connected with a lot of wine people. I mean, I bought the wines and everything, but I never got to know them. Like Kistler, Steve Kistler. You know, I was one of the first to bring it to Hawaii, right? And his wines now are some of the most highly rated, right? I never really hung out with Steve or you know, so he wouldn't know me from Cat's Meow, you know, and so it was this master sommelier named Fred Dame. He's the one that told me, Chuck, you got to get to know these guys so you have the relationship, and then from that stemmed, I don't really go to wineries too much. I walk vineyards, so all these guys will tell you, I know the vineyards pretty inside and out, and so that way, I know what's the best parcels, et cetera, et cetera. I can see where they're organically farmed or biodynamic farm. I can see, you know, the vine density. I can see everything, how they farm. You know, I can see their vision as they walk around the vines and they explain things. So I get a more complete feel of their thoughts about from ground to the bottle. Mm-hmm. And then I have to adjust every year because the climatic changes every vintage, right? Climate changes. So then I can adjust and understand why they did this, why the wine is like this. So whether it's Corsica or whether it's Greece or whatever part of the world, I walk vineyards.
That's giving you the base of what your product is. It's agricultural product, right? Yeah.
Well, that's why I know these two wines inside and out. I mean, I didn't rehearse this. I didn't study this. I just have images of the vineyard, you know, and all the different parcels and everything. And I know what parcels these came from.
I think that's also what's really cool about wine. You know, like studying this. I mean, I'm not really studying, but learning this stuff through this podcast is how variant it is from vintage to vintage. I mean, I'm an avid Coors Light drinker, and I love it for the consistency of it. But
that's very good.
How's the 14 Coors Light? Delicious.
Best vintage of it. Yeah.
Amazing.
But like how different it is.
I told you what his last name is. He's 95%.
Bro, I'm an uncle. But how variable or variant it is from vintage to vintage makes this so interesting, you know?
Yeah, that's what's unique about wine or anything else is that it's a live agricultural product that changes year to year, and you don't see that I work in every type of beverage. I work with beer and sake and spirits and wine, and wine's the only one that you have to deal with that stuff. There's no vintages for vodka or tequila.
I was just talking
whatever.
to him about it the other day when we were setting up for that wedding. we bartended and provided sommelier service for this wedding.
He watched me.
What's the name of your company?
we don't really have. Well, I mean, it's under the Furuya Uncorked
Oh,
umbrella.
okay, yeah, just making sure.
You know.
So I'm trying to give you a plug.
He's the show.
And
Trying to give you a plug on your own show.
when we're setting up for the wedding, I was like, hey, because we're doing our wine posses, our home delivery service, and all that, and we're very adamant about storing it temperature controlled before we ship it out. And I was like, and I like come up and the beers that we're doing for this wedding are sitting in the sun, and the spirits are sitting in the sun, and I was like, wait, do we have to start storing this shit or this stuff in temperature control too? He's like, no, it's been distilled. He's like, basically, wine is still alive.
No, but beer is still alive too.
So we have to store that temperature.
Yeah, beer does not like heat.
And beer has a short shelf life.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
does. I didn't know that.
Sake too.
I didn't know that
too.
until I started bartending at Buzz's.
What?
That Coors Light has a shelf life.
Oh, they all have shelf lives.
Bro, the Coors Light I've been drinking in my garage probably been there for like 5 years.
Bro, I've done ones where we this is completely off subject, but I worked with a lot of breweries, and we do beer tastings, but they do beer where there's fresh beer and then beer that is exposed to heat. Same age. So fresh beer, and then a 2 weeks old that's been exposed to no heat and then stored perfectly, and then a month old that's been heat and then perfectly, and then 2 months old. The shocking difference between it's not age, it's all about heat and temperature. So if you get exposure to heat or light when it comes to beer, you are in a bad spot.
No, but
it's as bad as wine.
No, but it's also you get skunkiness with age.
Yeah.
Unwanted age.
But you accelerate aging is what I'm saying through heat.
I
and
love
light.
aged beers.
They're not delicious.
He likes anything that's free. He's the show.
Mm-hmm.
You got to come and see the Keli'i Furuya show.
I don't
in the tights, in the bike pants.
I don't work at a bar anymore, so the show is only when we.
I'm gonna hire you. Can you just come to my house on a weekend? Can I hire you to come do this?
Anytime,
Yeah, that'd be
bro.
great.
Anytime.
You just see the three of us four of us were sitting there behind going, wow. He's the man.
Working his magic.
No, but anyway, so back to these wines. So because I know the vineyard so well, I can tell you characteristics of each of the vintages back to 91 for this one. I just know the wines that well.
That's amazing.
I mean? And it's because of the knowledge of the vineyard. It's not necessarily the knowledge of the wine, and so, it's just understanding where your tomatoes came from when you're cooking a dish, or understanding, how ripe it was, you saw the tomatoes, right? And so it gives you insight into how you want to adjust that dish, right? It's no different with wine.
Absolutely.
And with beers and spirits, that thing is kind of doesn't happen to the degree that you have in wines, even sake, because it's rice. When you're doing it with grains, you don't have as much variables. You have variables, but you don't have as much variables as you do with fruit like this, unless you're making Maui Gold.
Or you can distill it and then you're good to go. Yeah, we're talking about heat and temperature storage. The other week, Kali was getting the wines that you're doing for the wine club. And I was like, dude, it's going to be okay. They're going to go to Haia. They'll sit there for an hour. You'll be fine. He's like, no, my dad will kill me if these wines sit out of storage.
I waited there for an hour and a half.
He's like, I need to wait. I need to be there when the truck lands so I can grab the wines out of the truck, because if they sit in that storage, my dad's going to freak out.
One time, I'll never forget this, when I was with Fine Wine Imports, we finally got this Merlot from northeast Italy, from a winery called Zamo and Palazzolo. And to get the Zamo and Palazzolo wines was super difficult. And to get their Merlot was super difficult. I'm telling you, it was, even to this day, to try to get, I think it's called now Zamo and Zamo. But anyway, to get their wines, it's like, whoa. So when the wine arrived and we popped open a bottle to try, the wine was purple. I mean, like neon purple. Mm-hmm. And it was so alive in the kind. So we shipped both cases to the Ritz-Carlton on the Big Island. And when the wine was heading over there, somehow a case broke or some bottles broke. So they shipped the 2 cases back to Oahu after a couple days over there. They shipped it back to Oahu. I went down to pick it up. The wine was brown.
Oh,
in a matter of 2 or 3 days. It went from bright purple to browning edges.
I mean, you even said that one guy
in 2 or 3 days now. So I'm just telling you, I try to remember pictures of things. That thing, I will never forget that, because it shows you what can happen to a wine
Yeah.
just in a matter of days because of our heat and our ultraviolet light. Anyway.
You said that there's that one guy that doesn't even like to send wine 5 minutes away from his.
Yeah, this guy in
vineyard.
Greece. So this guy in Greece is one of the most chicken skin moments I've ever had, ever. And it was unexpected that we went to see him. It wasn't planned. This sommelier drove us there herself in her small little car. I mean, one of those real small cars. And when we go there, it was just this whole serendipitous thing where, God, nobody was there to welcome us. We had no idea where. And it wasn't even a winery. It was an art gallery.
He didn't speak English either.
And so I was there for, he spoke no English. I spoke no Greek, right? And so, and he was grouchy. He was 80-something years old, and he was maybe 70, high 70s. But, I mean, he was grouchy. He was not smiling, and he was, like, looking at you like, what? You know, like that. And so we ended up being there 6.5 hours, right? Even though he spoke no English. And so one of the moments was towards the end, when I tried his wine, I got freaking chicken skin, bro. I mean, it only happened a few times in my whole career that I had chicken skin like how I had it. His wine just totally moved me. So I started asking, so by the time the last half hour, somebody came, they called somebody, and the person translated for us. And then, so I was trying to finagle to get some of the wines to Hawaii. He said he's not shipping any to anywhere. So he was saying that he gave the wine that we're tasting, because he went in the back and got some older wines. The wine that we're tasting was one of the most special wines he's ever made. So he gave a bottle to one of his really good friends. And he was over at his friend's house. And the friend opened that bottle out of respect for him. And Antona said, his name was Antonis, he said the wine does not taste like, the guy lives 2 minutes away, bro. Because of that experience. That's why he don't ship to anywhere. 2 minutes away the guy lives, and put in his wine cellar, and he said the wine had deteriorated.
Wow. So what's his GoFundMe?
Yeah.
How does he make?
Hey, but you know what the other funny story? I got to show you this picture.
No, we'll save that story for after.
No.
You told that story a couple of times already.
Which
Brings
one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll save that for
Whatever.
off camera. But I like to cheers. I think we should wrap it up. And,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, yes,
Wait,
sir.
Before we wrap though, because I have you here and Chuck here and Money here in the room, you know, being on the podcast it's really special to me because I think the first time I met Keli'i, I know where it was. It was at Side Street, the old school Side Street. We were doing a fine wine event of some sort, and Keli'i must have been, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, maybe. I don't know, something along those lines.
He was already smoking and drinking at that
He
age.
was doing shots. He was giving me shots at the bar. It was really weird. And it was to come full circle and to hang out with him more now and to spend time with you, and then, you know, see you and then Money being here. And he really, like, as far as I've, you know, all the things that, you know, my career path and what it's been through cooking and then through wine and spirits and distributorships and all that stuff, it really 100% of it is owed to Mapu, Money, you know, your grandma. Because without her, like, giving me the foundation to conduct business the way I do, to think about business in a certain way, and to have, like, always have that kind of nagging, you know, like my grandma style, like in your ear, like, oh, don't screw this up. Like, if you're gonna do this thing, think about it this way. Don't waste wine. All these things, right? All these, like, foundational things when you're starting a business that somebody can teach you. But I didn't know shit about the wine business. But all I knew was what Money and your grandma were bringing to the table and teaching me over the course of being there, and that, you know, carried me on through my career. But I mean, honestly, like, now I'm super fortunate. I've been fortunate enough to have a great, you know, distributorship career, and now I'm being on my own with the vodkas and tequila and champagne and all these other businesses. But all of that comes from the foundation of having that starting point and somebody giving me some form of trust. Yeah, some chance. And that chance was taken by them. So
Cheers
thank
to
you guys
that.
all.
Cheers
I
for
appreciate
that.
it.
That's great. Money, you want to cheer too?
Cheers.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you,
Bob.
Keli'i. Thank you. To all of you, thank you for joining in this week. We hope you tune in next week. Until then, aloha, everybody.